All right, guys, we're back. We're going to talk about converting units of time. I kind of made you a list up here so we can go by. A lot of these you know, some you may not know. So if we're looking at 60 seconds, we know there's 60 seconds in a minute, 60 minutes in an hour, 24 hours in one day, 7 days in 1 week, 12 months in 1 year, 52 weeks in 1 year, 365 days in a year, 10 years equals 1 decade, 100 years is 1 century, and 1,000 years is 1 millennium. So, with knowing that, we're going to talk about converting units of time. So, if we're talking about days to hours, let's look. Let's say 1 day equals 24 hours. Well, 2 days equals how many hours? Now, a lot of you can do this in your head because you're saying, okay, if 1 day is 24 hours, 2 days is, and you can either add 24 plus 24, or you can come over here and say 24 times 2, because 2 days, so we'll be multiplying 24 times 2 to find our answer is 48. There's 48 hours. Same thing if I was going to do 3 days. How many hours in 3 days? Well, we're saying 24 times 3, or you can skip count 24 plus 24 plus 24, and you're going to get 72 hours. All right, so let's look at hours to minutes. So if we're saying 1 hour is equal to 60 minutes, how many minutes are in 2 hours? Well, you can say 60 plus 60, or you could say 60 times 2, which is going to give you 120 minutes. If I did 3 hours, it would be the same way. If I had 3 hours, and I wanted to know how many minutes are in 3 hours, I'm saying 60 times 3. And 60 times 3 is going to give you 180 minutes. The same thing's going to work if you were going from minutes to seconds. And one rule to know is if you're going from a larger unit to a smaller unit, you're going to multiply. But if you are going from a smaller unit to a larger unit, you're going to divide. So that's a good rule to follow. And see, on all of these, we have went from a larger unit to a smaller unit. All right, so let's look at a problem. Give me some more paper up there. Let's say how many hours are in 8 days? So that's our question. How many hours are in 8 days? Well, to find our answer, we need to know how many hours are in 1 day. So what we're doing right now, we're saying 8 days times, we don't know how many hours. Well, we know 1 day has 24 hours. So if one day has 24 hours, we want to know how many hours are in 8 days. Well, to find our answer, we can multiply. So if we say 8 times 24, we'll find our answer. Because if one day is 24 hours, 8 times 24 is going to tell us how many hours are in 8 days. So if I say 24 times 8, my answer will be 192 hours. So how many hours are in 8 days? Your answer is 192. Let's look at another one. Let's see. Let's say we have 283 seconds. Okay? We have 283 seconds. I want you to tell me how many minutes and seconds that is. Now, we are going from seconds to minutes, so we're going from small to large. So if you're going to small to large, then you have to divide. Remember our rule, if you're going from small to large, you divide. If you're going from large to small, you multiply. So small to large, seconds to minutes. So we're going to have to divide 283 by something. What are we going to divide 283 by? Well, how many seconds are in a minute? If you look over here, how many seconds are in a minute? There's 60. So if there's 60 seconds in a minute, I can divide 283 by 60. How many times will 60 go into 283? Well, you're going to have to work this out. You can go over to the side and you can multiply 60 times 2, 60 times 3, 60 times 4. Figure out which one gets the closest without going over. I've already multiplied, so I'm going to go ahead and give you the answer. 60 will go into 283 4 times. So 60 times 4 is 240. So now I'm going to subtract. 3 minus 0 is 3. 8 minus 4 is 4. So my remainder is 43. We just found our answer. To go from 283 seconds and tell me how many minutes and seconds there are. Well, 60 seconds is a minute. 60 will go into 283 4 times. So we know that there are 4 minutes, and your remainder is how many seconds that were left over, and 43 seconds. So if you're going from large to small, you have to multiply. If you're going from small to large, you have to divide. Let's look at, let's say we have 6 years and 4 months. 6 years and 4 months. I want to know how many months that is. How many months? Okay? So, 6 years, 4 months, and I want to know how many months are in 6 years and 4 months. Well, the first thing you need to know is how many months are in a year. So look over here. There are 12 months in a year. Okay? So if we know there are 12 months in 1 year, we've got to say 12 times 6 to find out how many months are in 6 years. So to find out how many months are in 6 years, we're going to say 12 times 6. 6 times 2 is 12. Carry my 1. 6 times 1 is 6. Plus 1 will be 72. All right. So we know there are 72 months in 6 years. but we still have 4 months to go. So we're going to take that 72 and add those other 4. So 72 plus 4 is going to give me 76. So we know 6 years and 4 months is the same as 76 months. All right, let's look at, get some more paper. I know on one of the IXLs you're going to do, it's going to ask you about a quarter an hour. So if it asks you how many minutes are in 1 quarter of an hour, okay? Well, you need to know that 1 hour is 60 minutes. I'll abbreviate. See, it's over here. 60 minutes is 1 hour. If it says 1 half an hour, did I put 6 right there? Lord help me. 1 hour is 60 minutes. 1 half an hour is 30 minutes. So 1 quarter of an hour is equal to 15 minutes. Okay? It's just like looking at a clock. If you're at 15 past, that's a quarter of an hour. So a quarter of an hour is the same thing as 15 minutes. So 1 quarter hour equals 15 minutes. All right, we're going to move on and start talking about adding and subtracting some mixed time units. Let me take this down and put me up some more paper. This is hard being at home and not having my board, so I can just erase and move on. But hey, we're going to make it work. There we go. Adding and subtracting mixed time units. So let's say I have 3 minutes, 7 seconds minus 1 minute, 4 seconds. All right. So I'm going to say 3 minutes, 7 seconds minus 1 minute, 4 seconds. Now the easiest way to do this, because when you subtract, as long as the first number is bigger than the second, you can just take away, don't worry about it. So let's say 3 minutes minus 1 minute. Well, 3 minus 1 is 2, so that's 2 minutes. 7 seconds and 4 seconds. 7 seconds, take away 4 seconds, would be 3 seconds. That makes it pretty easy when we do it like that. Let's try weeks and days. If I have 4 weeks, 4 days, and I'm going to take away 3 weeks, 2 days. All right. Same thing. I can look at the weeks first. 4 weeks minus 3 weeks. 4 minus 3 is 1. And 4 days minus 2 days. I can say 4 minus 2 will give me 2 days. All right, let's do one where we're adding. let's do 4 years, 2 months, plus 1 year, 9 months. Well, we're just adding. So if I have 4 years plus 1 year, I'm going to get 5 years. 2 months plus 9 months, I'm going to get 11 months. All right, so adding and subtracting this way, this is pretty easy. I don't think it's going to get much harder than what you're seeing here on your IXL. So we're going to move on to fractions of time units. That's probably the most difficult that you're going to do. Let me grab me another sheet of paper. All right. Fractions of time units. So let's say how many minutes are in 1/30 of an hour. Okay? So how many minutes are in 1/30 of an hour? Think, wow, okay. Well, we know that 1 hour equals 60 minutes, right? We want to know how many minutes are in 1/30 of an hour. And if we know 1 hour is 60 minutes, so we're going to find 1/30 of 60 minutes. Okay? To do that, we're going to have to divide. So we're going to divide 60 by 30. Then multiply by 1. See, it's got a 1 on top, so we're going to multiply by 1. So it's going to look like this. If I wrote it out, it would be 60 divided by 30 times 1. Okay? So, if we're dividing, you see my dots there. If we're dividing, 30 will go into 60 how many times? Well, 3 will go into 6 2 times. So 30 will go into 60 2 times. So we have 2 times 1, which is what's left over. So 2 times 1 is 2. So to find 1/3 of 60 minutes and you've divided, your answer will be 2. Let's look at another one. Let's do how many decades are in 1/5 of a century. Okay? So we'll know how many decades are in 1/5 of a century. So we're going to do the same thing. We're going to write it out. If you will write it out each time like I did and just fill in what's missing, it will help you find the answer. So we know how many decades are in a century. So how many years are in a decade? Look back over here. How many years are in a decade? There are 10 years in 1 decade. So if we know there's 10 years in 1 decade, we can divide by 10 because a decade is 10 years. So decade equals 10 years. All right. So let's find 1/5 of 10 years. Just remember, you're always dividing by the bottom of your fraction into what you're looking for. So we're going to divide 10. It's going to be divided by 5, so it's 10 years divided by the 5, which is on bottom, times 1, because that is our numerator. And we're going to find our answer. How many times will 5 divide into 10? Well, we know it's going to go 2 times. And then that leaves us with 2 times 1, which equals 2. So how many decades are in a fifth of a century? The answer is 2. So when you work these out on IXL, just kind of follow this format. If you will write it out like I did, it will make it easy and you will find your answers. Let's do one more. Which means I got to pull another piece of paper. All right. Let's do how many years are in a tenth of a century? How many years are in 1/10 of a century? All right, so we need to know about a century. Look over here. 100 years equals 1 century. So that's important. We got to know that 1 century equals 100 years. If you don't know all of these, I would suggest you write them down so you have them when you're working on your work later, because you're going to need it. So let's go back to this. We're going to find, so let's find 1/10 of 100 years. So to do that, we are going to divide 100 by 10, then multiply by 1. So it's going to look like this. So we've got 100 divided by 10. I put it in parentheses because you got to do that part first. You guys know this. Times 1. So 100 divided by 10 is 10. Bring down the rest. So 10 times 1 is 10. So that is your answer. How many years are in 1/10 of a century? Your answer is 10. All right, guys. If you have any questions, you can ask me or your teachers. We're always here to help you. We're going to do Zooms. We're online with Remind. I do Class Tag. Just know that we're all here for you, and we miss you, and see you soon. Thanks, guys. I don't know how to quit.